Hello, I'm Fernando Sosa, and you're watching Mindset of Steel live show. In this show, we encourage you to crush your limiting beliefs, punch fear in the face, and take massive action in your business and your personal life by focusing on the 80% psychology and 20% strategies. I'm excited to be here. This is episode number 26 of our weekly live show. And welcome. If you're joining us from YouTube, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and click on the notification icon so you can be notified when we go live. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. We're also available on Spotify and other podcasting platforms. And so you can listen to us on the go. Thank you very much for being here. If you haven't joined the community, go ahead and visit our website, mindsetofsteel.com, and be part of the community. We have a private Facebook group, and we have some content that we're putting together, some special events that we put together, and they're happening inside our private Facebook group. So if you go to mindsetofsteel.com, that's where the magic happens. So I'm very excited. Today we have a special guest, Terry Tucker, and he's going to talk to us a lot about his journey, and it's about mental toughness, really, I think. And I'm very excited about that. So before we get started, and before we bring Terry in, let me share with you a little bit about him, and we're going to welcome him in. So Terry Tucker, he's a former NCAA Division I college basketball player, a Citadel cadet, a marketing executive. He's been a hospital administrator. He's been an undercover narcotics investigator, a SWAT team hostage negotiator, a high school basketball coach, a business owner, motivational speaker, an author, and most recently, a cancer warrior. Since diagnosed with cancer in 2012, he's had a leg amputated, tumors in both the lungs, number of surgeries, and other challenges. But he's going to share with us how his journey and how he's currently fighting the battle of his life while spreading positivity and motivation to hundreds of people all over the world via his speeches, website, books, and more. So let's go ahead and welcome Terry. Welcome, Terry.
Hey, Fernando, how you doing? Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm doing good. Thank you for joining us. So, Terry, you're joining us from Colorado. Is that right, Denver?
Just outside of Denver, correct.
Awesome. How's what time zone? Is this the same time zone, Eastern? You're in?
No, we're in the Mountain Time Zone. So we're 2 hours ahead, behind, whatever you want. I never get it right. It's 7 o'clock your time. It's 5 o'clock here.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So here's already getting a little nighttime here. So it's been a long day. I'm excited to end the day with you on the show, and very grateful to have you on the show. I did some research and learned a lot about you, and was just very, very motivated by your journey. And I'm very excited to hear how you're going to share with us your journey and your book and everything that you're doing. Now, when I was reading into your background, something kind of funny I thought that kind of reminded me of with everything that in your bio, all these things that you've done, that you've been in, like marketing, hospital admin, SWAT team negotiation. For some reason, I thought of the movie Forrest Gump, and and all of the travels, all the adventures, and his life was like a box of chocolates, right? And you've been like, and they're all like all things that not necessarily connected. They look like a lot of different things. And I'm like, wow. And now, of course, you're going to share with us, your what you're doing now. So do you relate with Forrest Gump? I mean,
I kind of feel like my life is like a box of chocolates. I've lived on the East Coast. I've lived on the West Coast. I've lived in the Midwest. I've lived in the Gulf Coast. Now we're living in the Rocky Mountains. So about the only place between my wife and I that we haven't lived is in the New England area. So we've moved around a lot. I've moved for my wife's job. She's been in financial management and stuff like that. So we move when either she loses a job or finds something better. And it always gives us an excuse to declutter, whether it's declutter the house or declutter the mind and try something new.
Yeah. Now, like I said, I'm very grateful that you're here with us tonight, because I know that you're going to touch someone in a very special way, either now on the live or on the replay. Now, because the show is only 30 minutes, I'm going to give the audience and a reader's digest of your background, and so we can focus on our time together with things that you want to share and focus on more. So correct me and fill in the blanks, but this is the digest, and then we're going to dive deeper. So you're born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. You went to military, you graduated from military college. You got your first job in marketing. So you became eventually a marketing executive. You've been married over 27 years. You have a daughter that's in the military, and she's currently in Space Force. Like, how cool
she's
is
a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is currently in the new branch of the military, Space Force. Of course, talking to her is like, everything's top secret. How was work? I can't talk about it. Okay, good talking to you. So
how cool is that? Now, so in 2012, you were diagnosed with a rare type of melanoma, and that started on your foot, and it spread. You had surgeries, you had the cancer removed, you went on a medication for a couple of years, but the medication, the drug ended up being toxic to your body. You stopped the drug, the cancer came back. Eventually you had to have in 2018, your foot amputated. 2019, it came back. Take us from there and fill in the blanks. Was that?
Sure. So 2019, it came back in my shin on the same leg that it had appeared with the foot. I had a couple surgeries there. Then in February of last year, 2020, I had an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle that grew large enough to fracture my tibia, my shin bone. And I literally on one day, I had a CAT scan and a PET scan and found out that my entire lower leg was just infiltrated with cancer, and that I would need to have my leg amputated above the knee. And I had tumors in my lungs that I would need to be treated with chemotherapy. So in one day, I kind of was like, here's the bomb, let it drop. Now we got to deal with it. So I am currently undergoing a clinical trial to determine the efficacy of a new drug that for me is having some success. The tumors in my lungs have shrunk by about 20%. And my trial has added the drug Keytruda, which people may have seen on television. There's plenty of ads for it right now. Have added that, and my doctor's hoping that it will shrink even further. But there's no talk of a cure. This is just more of kind of buy me time right now. So I'm probably heading toward the end of my life, which, I'm really, it's funny because I'm really not that scared about that. I'm actually kind of looking forward to see what's on the other side. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking to go anywhere anytime in the near future, but that's kind of where I am right now.
Wow. And so tell me about this. I've heard in this show when COVID started, about April and May of last year, we had an episode where we talked about grief, and I looked into grief, and the episode basically was revolving about a study that this psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yep.
You're familiar with her?
I am.
She did a study on patients in a hospital, and kind of made an observation of their emotions, the stages that they go through. So she ended up publishing a book that I forget the name of it, but it was a book. It was a book that basically she detailed the stages of grief, and there's 5 stages of grief. But that grief doesn't just happen when somebody dies. It can also happen in traumatic events, in life circumstances. They go to the similar stages. So so you say you're familiar with that. Do you represent that as being accurate in terms of how you felt, like when you first in 2012, when all of this happened? Have you gone through these stages? Have you felt these Like it
I
seems like,
have.
yeah.
I have. You kind of, first you're in denial. It's like, well, this can't possibly be happening to me. I've done everything right in my life. I've had a physical every year. I've eaten good. I exercise. I'm not overweight. I don't, all that kind of stuff. And then you get mad. It's like, wait a minute, how can this possibly be happening to me when I have done everything right in my life? And then you start to try to bargain. You kind of bargain with God. It's like, well, hey, if you let me see my daughter graduate from high school, I'll go to church more or stuff like that. Although I go to church quite regularly anyway, or I used to before COVID, and then you get to a point where you accept, and I know I'm leaving out a stage and I can't remember what that other stage is.
Depression.
Yeah. I didn't hang in the depression very long. Do I get depressed from time to time? Do I get down? Absolutely. But that's a choice. Let me phrase that. It's not a choice to be depressed. It's a choice to stay there, at least for me. And I'm not talking about clinical depression where you need medication and stuff like that. I'm talking about, I broke up with my girlfriend, my boyfriend, whatever. I lost my job. I'm down. I'm depressed. Yeah, everybody gets there. It's your choice whether to stay there or not. Everybody's going to have pain in their life, but suffering, that's up to you. So yeah, I went through all those stages and then finally decided this is the hand that I've been dealt and I'm going to play it to the best of my ability.
Amazing. So Terry, I saw that you have a book, and I actually, after learning about you, I actually went. I ordered it already on Amazon, so I should be getting it by Friday. I'm looking forward to reading that. So, can you tell me a little bit about your book?
Sure. The book is called Sustainable Excellence: The 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, and it's a book that was really born out of two conversations that I had. One was with a former player who I coached in high school, who she and her boyfriend had moved to Colorado after they graduated from college. My wife and I had dinner with them. And I said to her, I said, I'm really excited that you're here. And I kind of get to watch you find and live your purpose. And she got real quiet for a few minutes. And she looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? And I said, I don't know what your purpose is. That's what your life should be about. So that was one conversation. And then I had an individual reach out to me on LinkedIn who was in college. And he said, can you give me some ideas about the things that I need to learn to not only be successful in my business, but more importantly, successful in life? And I thought about that for a while, and I didn't want to give him the classic, work hard, get up early, help others. I mean, that's all been done, and that's very important. I'm not saying it's not, but I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to kind of get into something that maybe would resonate in his soul. So I started writing things down, and it took me a while. I didn't respond to him right away. And eventually I kind of had these 10 principles. And when I was comfortable with them, I sent them to him. And then after that, I kind of looked at him and I said, I've got a life event that would fall into that principle, or I know somebody who has a life event that would fall into that principle. So I literally sat down at the computer. I had my leg amputated in April of 2020. I started chemotherapy for my lung tumors in June of 2020, and I wrote the book in between that time period. And I just started, I had the principles already, so I started putting stories underneath them and that would illustrate what that meant or how somebody was impacted by that. And the next thing you knew, I had a book, but then, I had a book, but did I have a book? And so my wife works with an individual who's a former Navy SEAL, and he's married to a woman who was a former prosecutor and is a real estate attorney now. And they're young, they're in their early 30s. And I gave him the book. I said, look, would you mind reading this for me and tell me if I'm all wet or this is good or whatever? And both of them read it independently and were like, you got to get this published. So I did that, and I kind of knew I was on the right track when I had an 87-year-old man contact me out of the blue who said, I bought your book and I read it, and I wish I would have had those principles when I was growing up because my life would have been a whole lot better.
Wow, what a testimonial right there. So I just get more and more impressed. I mean, you're telling me that within the last 12, 16 months, that was during COVID, this book got birth while you're doing chemo and
Yeah.
all of this, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I literally had my leg amputated in the middle of the pandemic where my wife dropped me off at the hospital. I could have no one with me. I was the only surgery that day. I was in the hospital for 48 hours when I should have been in for a week. And, I mean, talk about scared. I was, not only just me, but my wife. Here's my husband, who I've been married to for 27 years, going to have this major surgery, and I can't be with him. Fortunately, my doctor's a great guy, and he kept her informed on the phone and things like that. But still, it's not the same as being there to help your spouse out. So, yeah, went through all that, then decided to write a book. And, as I was going through chemo, was working with a publisher and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I didn't want any grass to grow under my feet. So I figured I might as well do something.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, kudos to your wife as well. I mean, because you share your story, and I can imagine that, every time somebody's ill or something, it also affects people who we have close by, our family members. So that's amazing. So do you think that your experiences with all you've done in the past have kind of prepared you mentally to where you are today?
In a lot of ways, I think so. I've been an athlete for most of my life and, played college basketball. But in high school, I had 3 knee surgeries, and my basketball career was kind of in doubt for a while. As a matter of fact, I had my second surgery. They took out 25 pieces of my bone, and the doctor's like, "You're not going to play basketball anymore. You'd be lucky to walk normally again." And, that's all I needed was to challenge me that way. And so I managed to get back. I managed to fight through that. And I learned a lot about myself because I looked at myself at that point in my life as damaged goods. I played in the same conference with Isaiah Thomas in high school. He went on to play at Indiana and eventually play with the Detroit Pistons and won some NBA championships. And I played against Michael Jordan in North Carolina and North Carolina State when I was in college. So, I was very good without trying to sound conceited, but I had these surgeries, and in my mind was working on me. It was like, yeah, you're not that good anymore. You had these surgeries, you're kind of a step slower or whatever thing. So I learned right then and there that you need to control your mind or it's going to control you, because your mind knows your fears, it knows your vulnerabilities, and it knows your weaknesses, and it will use those against you if it doesn't like where you're going. And the mind, we know this, the mind doesn't like pain and suffering. It likes everything to be copacetic. Don't rock the boat. Everything's good. You want to start rocking the boat. The mind, that's when it's like, no, wait a minute. You want to look for a new job? No. You work for a new job. You may not get along with your coworkers, or, things here are great. You're making good money. The work is easy. You understand the routines. So, yeah, I think from an athletic point of view, and then when I went to the police academy, it was drilled into us that we would win. We will always win. And I remember our defensive tactics instructor used to have us bring a photograph to training of the people we loved. And we would look at that photograph while we were learning to defend ourselves, because he reasoned that, just lost my train of thought. Sorry. He reasoned that you'll fight harder for the people you love than you'll fight for yourself. So he wanted you to remember that at 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're fighting some drunk guy, for your life, that it's more than just you. There's potentially a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a spouse or a child or parents or whatever at home that want to make sure that you come home, and you're responsible for that. And don't think this is just about you. It's much bigger than you.
Yeah. That's what is your why there? Interesting. Now, so you mentioned, so you were a churchgoer, and you've been a churchgoer, and obviously the pandemic shifted things around. So can you share with me, how has your spiritual life helped you in this journey?
I like to talk about the 3 F's, and those are faith, family, and friends, that have really kind of sustained me through this. I have always been religious, but probably more than religious, spiritual. I believe that we were put on this earth for a reason. I believe that we were created, out of pure love. And I whenever I start feeling down, I kind of remember this. It's like, you know what? So our God, whatever you believe that entity to be, and I don't mean to put my version of it on you, but from my perspective, you know, my God created me in his image and likeness. And he knew all the dumb, stupid, crazy, sinful things that I was going to do in my life, and yet loved me enough to put me on this earth. And then gave me a purpose, gave me the gifts that I have are not the gifts that you have. And the gifts that I have are gifts that are different than everybody who's come before me and everybody that will come after me. And when you start to think about that, you kind of realize that in the scheme of things, you're not too significant. You know, that there's an entity out there. And that's why I say, so spirituality, being connected to God, I probably spend an hour every day in prayer. And I not only pray for myself, and I pray that I get a miracle to remove these tumors from my lungs, but I have met so many people through my book, through podcasting, through, being at the hospital and cancer treatments that ask me, you know, hey, I'm going through a tough time. So I pray for them and in the hope that maybe God will give them a little bit of comfort in that. So yeah, spirituality, friends and family have been really kind of the bedrock, the cornerstones of getting me through this so far.
That's amazing, Terry. And Terry, I mean, by talking like this, I would say that you are or can be a prayer for other people just by being yourself. Just watching you, listening to you, reading your book, you are a prayer. I mean, you'll never know how much you'll touch somebody, now or when time passes, and your journey with all these things. I mean, I just think it's amazing. Your bio. I mean, how do you? I mean, I'm not gonna ask you how old you are, but you went to
I'm 60 years old. I'm 60 years old.
You're still.
I have no problem with telling you that.
You've done so many things. I mean, it's very interesting that the SWAT team negotiator, hostage negotiator. I mean, that right there has a lot of mind training that I'm sure it's helped you in a lot of different ways. You know, you've been a coach, a basketball coach. Again, the marketing has a lot. It's amazing. It's really amazing what you've done. And you are a true warrior. And it's like you just remind me of another. Have you heard of David Goggins?
Oh, read his book. Yeah, Can't Hurt Me. Yeah, love David Goggins.
Okay, so you're reminding me of him about mental toughness. You seem like a tough guy, and you have your mind straight, and you're amazing. I think that you're truly a warrior. And yeah, David Goggins. I read his book. We talked about it in an episode here. That's what brings what I'm thinking about right now. So
can I tell you a story about Goggins?
Sure.
So there was a point after my cancer came back, after the tumors, after the interferon was discontinued, and the tumor came back in my foot, and I was put on a biologic therapy to see if that might help. And it didn't work, and I had the amputation. But the therapy itself gave me a disease called pseudo gout when my knees swelled up. It gave me several different things, including what I thought was a heart attack. Woke up in the middle of the night and was convinced I was having a heart attack. My wife rushes me to the hospital, which is fairly close to us. And I remember laying there on the gurney, the table, and all these doctors and nurses doing all kinds of stuff. And my wife was sitting right by my head. And I remember I turned to her, and literally I had tears coming down my cheeks. And I begged her just to let me die. I just wanted out of this life or this body that seemed to be continually attacking me. And it was at that moment that I remembered reading an article about the owner of a professional sports team who paid a Navy SEAL to come and live with his family for a month and teach them to use their mind to be tougher or stronger than their body ever thought they could do. And that Navy SEAL was Goggins. And one of the things that I remembered reading about was what Goggins called the 40% rule. So that if you think you are at the end of your rope, and I'll tell you, at that point, laying there on that gurney, I was at the end of my rope. I was totally mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted, and I just wanted to die. I remember reading that article and thinking, the 40% rule says if you're at the end of your rope, you still have 60% left in reserve. And I remember kind of just blocking everything out that was going on around me and kind of going inside myself and just telling myself, you got more, you've got more, you've got more. And eventually I survived that. But I often wonder, why did I remember that at that moment? Why had I read that article months and months ago? But thankfully for me and certainly my family, they were happy the fact that I didn't die, that I didn't quit, that I didn't give up. And that really kind of solidified in my mind. I look at Goggins and, I have a ton of bad days. The guy never seems to have a bad day. And even when he has a bad day, it's a good day, and I strive to be like that, but I'm nowhere near what he is. And I just wish at some point in time, that I get to that point. But, like I say, I come on these podcasts and it makes it seem like I have all the answers. I don't. I get scared. I cry. I get nervous. I don't want to go to the hospital and have treatment. But I always decide that I'm going to do that. I always say, you know what? Yeah, it sucks, but I'm going to use that suck. I'm going to try to win the day. And sometimes for me, winning the day is winning the minute. I just got to win this minute.
Right. Wow. It's amazing. Do you feel like your mindset has changed from before you had this cancer, or you think you were pretty much the same? I think you were pretty before.
Yeah, I think at least from a medical point of view, yes. I literally was the kid when I was a little child. When I knew my mom was taking me to the pediatrician to get a vaccine, I'd wait till she got out of the car and I'd lock all the doors from the inside. And this was long before key fobs, so she'd have to go get the pediatrician and his nurse. And it was a kind of cat and mouse game to extract me from the car. That's how petrified I was of just getting a simple vaccine. So, there are days now when I have my treatments that I counted one day last week where I was actually stuck with a needle 14 different times. And, whether to take blood or to give me an IV or, to put the medication in, whatever it was. And, people are like, well, how the heck do you do that? And I'm looking at this Post-it note here on my desk that I have what I call my 3 truths to it. And the first one is the one I just gave you. You need to control your mind or it will control you. The second one is you need to embrace the pain and the suffering that we all experience in our lives and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third one is, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. So I guess in a way, I've learned to take all that pain and turn it inside and use it to, as energy, or to burn it as fuel to make me stronger and more determined. That, what? All right, you're going to stick me 14 times, stick me 14 more times. I'm okay with that. I'll take that. I'll use it, and it'll make me stronger.
That's amazing, Terry. As you're speaking and I'm listening, I'm just, another thought comes into my mind. Another book that I read that we talked about recently, Man's Search for Meaning. Have you read that one?
I have.
All the suffering, all the pain, you keep on going. You have your why, keeps you focused on surviving and, just moving forward. And that.
And it does. And I, some people have asked me, it's like, well, what do you think about, say, the night before you're going to have your leg amputated or the night before you're going to have your foot amputated? And I tell people, I said, what I think about are those young, predominantly men, but some women who were sitting on those ships off the coast of Normandy, on June 5th or June 6th, of 1944, and getting ready to invade, Europe to try to take back Hitler. And many of them never got out of the boats. They were just massacred in these boats. But here were these young people that were willing to give of themselves for the betterment of somebody else. I'm gonna risk my life. I'm going to never have children. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to, retire. I'm never going to be able to do all that stuff because I'm going to get struck down in one of these Higgins boats by a machine gun bullet, from a pillbox on the beach. And I think about the tremendous amount of, people like, you have a lot of courage. Those people had a lot of courage. Those people had a tremendous amount of courage because most of them knew they were probably going to die the next morning, and yet still got in those boats and still hit that beach. So that's kind of when I think about, before I have what everybody says, oh, this is a horrible thing. Yeah, that was a pretty horrible thing too. So I don't have the market cornered on suffering, but I'll tell you one thing, suffering is one of life's greatest teachers.
Right. Suffering is the greatest. Yep, that's absolutely correct. So we're running out of time now, but Terry, so you're definitely planting seeds on someone's mind. I mean, you're awesome with this message that you're sharing. Your book. So what would you like your legacy to be? What do you? I mean, I think you already have a legacy. You're with everything. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I always ask people, especially now, the more that I think about it, to think about the end game. What will your legacy be? What will be the one sentence that people will say about you at your funeral? And I always tell people, let your life be shaped by the decisions that you made, not by the ones that you didn't or the ones that other people made for you. I had this question one time before where somebody said, how do you want to be remembered? And the more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't really have any great desire to be remembered. I mean, nobody's going to name a street after me or a building or anything like that. But right now, with whatever time I have left, I want to put as much goodness, positivity, and love back into the world as I possibly can.
I think you're doing a great job doing just that. So how can people connect with you, learn more about you? I know I have the website here. You can see on where is it? Over there, beneath you. So they can go to your website. This is your website, motivationalcheck.com.
Yeah, motivationalcheck.com will get you to there's a link there to get to the book if you'd like to buy that. There's my social media pages are on there as well. If you want to send me an email directly, it's motivationalcheck@aol.com.
Okay, awesome. So Terry, thank you very much for being here and sharing your journey, and we stay connected. This has been awesome. If you're watching on the replay, just make sure you check from the very beginning. Connect with Terry, and this has been episode number 26 of Mindset of Steel live show. And next week we go live at the same time. Terry, you want to leave with the final words for our audience? Some final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll leave you with this. For the next 30 days, do me this one favor. Everybody you come in contact with, assume that they are going to be dead tomorrow. So the person who cuts you off in traffic on the way to work, or the person at school or work who takes credit for your work, or your kids who are driving you nuts, look at them as if they'll be dead tomorrow. Because if you do that, you will have so much less stress in your life, and you'll look at people a whole lot differently and a whole lot more positively.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you, Fernando. I appreciate it.
Thank you.